Hello and welcome. Now, the first comment today is asking me to talk about how I came to Buddhism and how long had you been practicing as a lay person before you ordained. Also, you mentioned that you listen to Dharma talks on YouTube. When you do, who do you listen to? So on the second question, I don't really listen to Dharma talks on YouTube so much these days. I can say that was possibly my introduction many years ago now to Dharma talks through the teachings of Ajahn Brahm, whom then was becoming available on YouTube, and also a bhikkhu called Yuttadhammo Bhikkhu, who incidentally now does live in Sri Lanka and has a meditation centre and monastery here, albeit practicing a different meditation tradition. I've always found his teachings on the suttas very useful, very clear and concise. But more recently, I've tended to concentrate on just my own practice, with the exception of perhaps as and when, which is quite rare, they are available, the Dharma talks of Ajahn Jayasaro, another monk from the Ajahn Chah tradition, living in Thailand, but an English man whom ordained under Ajahn Chah, so very many Vassas years ago. I'm always glad to hear his talks, which are normally in Thai, but occasionally when he's visiting another country, and on rare occasions in Thailand, he gives Dharma talks in English. So it is a channel I'm subscribed to. Usually they come up in squiggly Thai script, but when I notice English, I'll listen to his talks. Other than that, I might dig up on occasions an archive talk of, say, someone like Ajahn Punyadharmo, another English monk whom ordained under Ajahn Chah, ordained under Longtar Mahaboa in Thailand, the Thai forest tradition, but a different branch. And I always find his talks useful and very inspiring. You'll note those three, as well as Ajahn Sumedho, who now lives in England but spent most of his monastic life living in Thailand, are English speaking. Their mother tongue is English. And I do find it more useful to listen to Dharma talks from teachers in my own language, of whom it is their mother tongue also, rather than a teacher trying to speak, however well, English. I'm never finding it coming across in terms of the complexity sometimes of Dharma teachings, but also the simplicity that can come from it being taught naturally in one's mother tongue. So I always encourage you listen to, if it's available, if it's possible, to teachers whom are speaking a language you're very comfortable with, very familiar with, or it is indeed your mother tongue. I'm a little limited in my language skills, very limited in fact, so I'm restricted to English speaking. But my practice these days is that of my own, not to listen to others so much, and then with reference to those suttas where relevant, and investigation in terms of this experience of practice in monastic life is what I strive to do, rather than listening to Dharma talks. As for my own time prior to ordination, I think there's a clear enough description in the channel description page, a very brief and summarized short biography that sums that up, really. There's enough in there that just enough to explain how I came to Buddhism, which is what you ask, how long it took, and I have also spoken at some length in 2, maybe 3 talks going back some time, but they are 2 or 3 of the talks that if you do search for, they do come up quite quickly, I think. How to become a monk, or how and why one becomes a monk. I think something along those lines on English Buddhist Monk channel, where I give a more detailed account of that experience. But I hasten to add, it was a long time before I ordained that I was practicing as a lay person, not perhaps as long as many, but my practice as a lay person was living as a monk. I was on 8 precepts for for at least 5 years, a bit more, maybe 7 years. I was living on 8 precepts in solitude in various places, either in Buddhist monasteries in Thailand or alone in a van on the beach in the south of England. So I was living like a monk, although I wasn't ordained, for some 5 to 7 years prior to my ordination. And that was also pretty well shortly after I came to Buddhism and began my practice. So I went into it at the deep end, intensively. There were family situations and duties I had, responsibilities and matters of lay life I had to clear up prior to ordination. So there was a delay, otherwise I would have ordained much sooner. So with that delay, I thought I won't let it get in the way of my practice. I can still live as a monk even though I'm not ordained. So that is the way I went about it. There's more about that in the channel description. So someone's asking me about if I know about the large Buddhist community in Bangladesh, and you say there's something like a population of 38,100, a very specific number there. As I understand it, there's a considerably larger community of Buddhists in Bangladesh than that. It's in the millions. A lot of them originating from Myanmar. So Myanmar, or as it used to be, Burma, is a Buddhist country, and Bangladesh borders with Myanmar. So there are many, many Buddhists there, both indigenous and migrant, whom live in the mountains and live all over the place. So yeah, I was aware, but I'm not familiar with their actual practices. You mentioned their Theravada, and I would expect that to be the case, considering they come from a Theravada Buddhist country originally, or if not, even as indigenous people of Bangladesh, it's very much a part or close to the region that the Buddha was living and teaching in his time. So you're not forgotten out there. I'm glad you're listening to me if you are. One day, please may we live stream a 2-hour meditation session. Maybe. I don't have Wi-Fi here. You might think I do from seeing these videos. And without Wi-Fi, uploading these talks can take some time and use quite a considerable amount of data. Now, although data is not expensive here, it is still you who is paying through your kind donations online, your contributions for that data, and I'm considerate not to waste it. So this phone, I have to arrange for it to be topped up for that to work. The live streams in the morning are only half an hour, and I think that's enough live, and there's activity with chanting, short meditation and blessings for it to be useful, and enough people joining me in that for me to continue doing that. With regards to a 2-hour session of meditation, I'm not sure there are going to be many people in the varying time zones, of course, which there are many, that would be available to sit for that 2 hours. And it isn't a case of just plugging a camera into Wi-Fi and leaving it on for 2 hours, or even, as you do see, all of the time, streaming live continually. So that would be a waste of your resources, the resources that are kindly offered to the Sangha for myself to use. So I respect that. However, when we are fully complete with the meditation hall, there will be some longer meditation sessions, guided meditations, certainly some longer meditation sessions recorded and uploaded, which can be done in a more structured way. So not in terms of the recording itself, but how the matter is uploaded to YouTube later on. I won't go into all that technical, boring side of it, but simply it's a case of resources. We don't have unlimited resources and modern technology here where I'm living. I'm out on the fringe of things, really. But certainly we'll try to bring as much coverage as we can to you. So, how does a monk, or anyone else, make the determination to begin teaching? I know there is a time limit before one gives Dharma talks, and these videos are not strictly that. But if one should be focused on one's own practice, where does teaching come in? I see, for example, that dealing with certain unproductive comments or even just setting up the equipment could be an unnecessary distraction from the practice. Okay, so I wouldn't say one makes a determination to begin teaching. Certainly not. We have a determination to practice. If through your practice, as a result of causes and conditions, so for instance where you're living, whom you're living amongst, in what kind of a community you're placed in, because it's not always our decision, then you may be called upon to share Dharma with others. Now, it is only specific traditions that have this time limit on teaching. So specifically in the Thai forest tradition, there is 10 years grace given to all ordained monastics before they are expected or even allowed to teach the Dharma. And then it is quite formally arranged. But one can discuss, and the Buddha encourages anyone to discuss, lay folks and ordained monastics alike, the Dharma whenever given the opportunity, whenever the question arises, not to preach, not to lecture, not to proselytize. It's not an evangelical religion. Only if someone asks you, what are you doing? How does that work? And maybe interested in your lifestyle, interested in Buddhism, and asks you a question, as I am responding to here with these comments, can you answer those questions if you are able to? Or refer people to someone who is able to answer their questions. Or literature, if necessary. So it isn't a determination, more a natural progression of what may or may not happen. Now, with Buddhas, the Buddha was encouraged to teach. At first he thought the Dharma might be too difficult for people to understand. But the Sahampati God came down and said, whether this is a mythological analogy or a fact is neither here nor there, but he was encouraged through thought in his process after enlightenment of analysis of that, to go out and teach the Dharma to those who have little dust in their eyes, meaning there are some who will pick it up. But I suppose at that point he thought, well, I'll go to my ascetic brethren that I began practice with first and then see what happens. And naturally it progressed from there. Disciples heard, came to the Buddha and always asked. And there is a formal request for the Dharma that is performed in, say, those traditions of a more formal nature, like the Thai forest tradition, where Dharma talks need to be requested and then given under certain conditions. But formal talks, questions and answers, and this kind of experience is not prohibited, and it seems, by all accounts, quite useful. I discovered this format and this means of discussing Dharma purely by accident a couple of years ago, and have continued to do it ever since, because I'm told people find it useful from the encouraging comments I receive, so I keep doing that. Now, it says, should one be focused on one's own practice? So I'm recording this now. As long as this video takes is as long as it takes. You say about the distraction of setting up equipment. It's just a smartphone balance there in front of me. That's it. I turn it on. I go into the camera and press record and sit down in front of it and speak. And at the end I turn it off, open the YouTube thing and press upload this video. That's finished. Everything else is pretty much automatic, and even the little notes and writing underneath, the descriptions, it's all pre-filled. How that actually works, manifests itself, I'm not really sure, but I don't have to do anything. So there's no preparation, there's no editing afterwards. At the moment I'm recording these at 3 a.m, 4 a.m. in the morning in order to avoid the distraction of builders next door, because it's more pleasant for you to listen to if you're just listening and you have your things in your ears or something like that, if you don't have disturbing bangs in the background. But also I found it's a rather good time to be doing this. It does interrupt an hour of my morning's meditation, but do remember I have the rest of the 24 hours, of which only 6 at the most, 4 to 6 hours I sleep at night, from sort of any time from 10 to midnight or until 3 a.m. in the morning. And the rest of the time is free for me to meditate. I don't have any other duties here. So you could say that living in a community of monks in a monastery where there are many duties, even sweeping, as enjoyable as it might be and look, it's still a duty, and one performs one's duties mindfully. And you're always told by your teachers, well, you might be complaining about cleaning the toilets or building this and painting that, but it's all practice, it's all mindful. Yes, so is living in lay life if you're busy, if you do everything mindfully. But there's always times when you're not, because you'd rather hurry off and hurry and get the job finished so you can just go and sit in your kuti and meditate and try and work towards developing samadhi. But of course we're encouraged not to do that. But I think a lot of that is to do with community life, discipline, developing that humility and developing khanti, patience and patient endurance, rather than trying to attain to, say, samadhi and jhanas, which does require a consistent effort of sitting practice, which is why people go on meditation retreats. Why you hear monks going on meditation retreats, especially at this time, the Vassa. Now I always find that a little odd. A monk going on a meditation retreat, isn't it surely always a meditation retreat? So I mean, at the moment we're building a new meditation hall. It's being built or refurbished from an old building. One might think that involves a lot of work, distraction from the practice. No, not at all. As I said at the beginning, about 3 weeks ago, only 3 weeks ago, I made a determination to practice through the Vassa, continuing with my meditation, and with the determination to establish a new meditation hall, having the building there, or the location already the building next to this building, this small kuti. I made the determination for that to become a meditation hall. And through your generosity and support, it has become, or is becoming, very quickly and efficiently and quite quietly, a meditation hall, and it's looking beautiful. So I'm sharing the pictures each day as it develops with you on the posts there on YouTube, which is relatively new to me, but I don't write anything. I literally just upload the 5 photographs it allows each day or every other day. So that doesn't distract me either. Neither does the project itself or the work. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It will, because I have absolute faith, saddha, confidence that it will. And that's proven, isn't it? Because only 3 weeks later, it's a finishing off of the rendering that needs to be done now. The timbers, I think, have been ordered, and the roof will be put on in due course over the next few weeks, and then the finishing off, and it will be complete. I haven't had to lift a shovel, a bag of cement. I haven't even had to sweep any more than I ordinarily do, sweeping out my kuti and my veranda at the beginning and end of each day. I've been able to continue my practice unaffected with all of that going on by simply making that determination. Lay folk are more than happy to lend their skills and their hard work out of faith. Of course, they're paid adequately also for their work because they have to make a living, and complete the project knowing that I have confidence in them, that they know what they're doing. After all, monks, we don't own anything. It's not ours. It's theirs, it's yours, it's the community's. It's a coming together of like minds to create something from an idea, an original idea. And seen as positive, there are more than enough people to lend a hand in that aren't ordained Buddhist monks needing to get involved. So we do remain strictly focused on our practice as monks, whether we're physically chopping wood and building with bricks and knocking up cement ourselves, or studying in a library, taking Pali exams, or teaching in a school, or ministering things in an office, or just sitting in our kuti developing samadhi. We can choose. I choose the latter. So there we are. Despite all that's going on around me and my seemingly ever-present nature on YouTube, it's only 3 short recordings a week. That's it. The live bit in the morning I'm doing anyway. I just turn the camera on in the corner of the room. Okay. I was wondering if you could discuss some benefits of meditation. More specifically, how does one regularly, being in a very relaxed, one-pointed state, help you get rid of suffering in day-to-day life when you are not in meditation? So I think I have to say there, please try if you can to listen to these talks. All of these talks on this channel are about exactly that. So it isn't just a simple answer. I could give you a whole list of the benefits of meditation. They will bring about natural qualities, however, eventually. Natural qualities of loving kindness, of compassion, of joy for others, in other words, the opposite of jealousy, and ultimately equanimity, the unreactiveness but full awareness of what's going on in all of your external surroundings as well as internal influences, both physical and mental phenomena. This is a calming and steadying development of the mind to help you approach life in a more overall mindful way, careful way of behaving. You develop mindfulness, sati, through the practice of this, what you say, being singly focused on a meditation object, developing samadhi, concentration, and vice versa. With mindfulness in all of our daily activities, sati sampajana, we are developing a mind that is more malleable to focused attention on a meditation object, and then the development of samadhi when we have the opportunity to sit. So the overall benefits are phenomenal, but are to be experienced, not just told, oh, you should meditate because of this particular health benefit, this particular mental abilities it would give you, and so on and so forth. The list is in fact endless. You're also saving yourself at the time of meditation from doing other things that may be less conducive to a good way of life. So it's a skillful behavior, skillful activity, as opposed to some unskillful distractions one might employ, say whatever that might be, to try and avoid suffering. Through meditation, we're looking to see clearly the cause of suffering. And by seeing clearly the cause of suffering, we can eradicate that cause of suffering by the extinguishing of greed, of hatred and delusion. So that's how meditation ends suffering. But all of these talks, as I've just said, 3 talks a week, most of which are relating to your own comments and questions, cover all of those aspects and how we apply what we develop in meditation to everyday life, and how we develop life skills from this practice. Is it more important to do both sitting and walking meditation, or can one just do sitting daily, meditation daily? If you can just sit and you enjoy that, that is okay. But most people need a break in sitting, and rather than going to the sofa, the fridge or the television, it is advised that one, say if you can only sit for 1 hour and you need a break, that you then maybe for 20 minutes practice walking meditation before you then return to sitting again. Walking meditation is where you simply walk from A to B in a straight line. It's not wandering around the forest looking at the view. It is literally walking in a straight line from a point about 30 feet to another point in front of you, just looking a few meters ahead. Apologies for the mix of imperial and metric measurements there. The point being, you just walk up and down, with nothing around you on the path to distract you, just with your focus of attention on lifting, moving, placing, or stepping right, stepping left, stepping right, stepping left. More specifically, lifting your right foot, moving it, placing your right foot down. Then lifting your left foot, moving it, placing your left foot down. Now we will, in front of the meditation hall there already was, but now it's covered in rubble and wood and stuff, but there will be again nice straight 30-meter meditation walking paths. So people who aren't inclined to sit can practice walking meditation. So yes, if you can just sit for 3 hours, 4 hours, 9 hours, great, do that. But if you need a break, break it up with walking meditation. That's what walking meditation is for. It isn't instead of. One shouldn't just practice walking meditation and not sit. You can just sit and not walk, but you cannot just walk and not sit, because just walking meditation isn't enough. You'll get absorbed in the walking and the stepping right, stepping left, stepping right, stepping left, but you will not reap the full benefits that one is going to develop through samadhi that comes only from sitting meditation, where you're not having to lift, move, place, lift, move, place. You just sit and do nothing. But it is very advantageous. The Buddha himself prescribes walking meditation, and it's a form of exercise. It doesn't have to be walking particularly slowly, either just below your normal pace or slightly above your normal pace. So quite quickly is good. You may practice walking meditation up and down quite quickly before you sit, just to help relax and stretch the limbs and clear the mind. So if you can, yes, walking meditation is useful, but it's not the essential part, but it's better than any other alternatives like the sofa or the fridge. So yes, if you want to just sit, that's in answer to your question, please just sit, that's fine. Most people though do need a break at some point. Oh, someone's written here, I want to be rich and famous. Well, you should watch a few more of these videos. It's not going to get you anywhere, being rich and famous. I will say you'll come to understand that, even if you don't watch these videos, by just listening to Dharma talks or reading the suttas or reading some descriptions of the life of the Buddha. If you refer back to any talks around the full moon of May, Vesak, V-E-S-A-K, search those talks. I usually talk about the Buddha's path to enlightenment, how he left the forest, how he saw the 4 heavenly messengers. And you'll see from that that rich and famous is very much a delusional aspiration. And that's something we're trying to eradicate, delusion. Are you allowed to wear a what? A VR. Oh, a VR. That's virtual reality, headset and exercise. And you say that's a decent sized room. Okay, this is the entirety of my living space, and it's just about within the parameters of a prescribed kuti size in the Vinaya. We have limits to the size of our kutis. We're prohibited from building or being involved with the building, creation of any kutis bigger than this size. Next door is not a kuti, it's a meditation hall, and it's for the lay folks, for yourselves, for supporters, for practitioners, and the use of monks, other monks, as well as myself. So that can be any size it likes, and it's going to be quite large. But this kuti needs to be within these parameters, as it is. And being as it's an empty building, that's a little more flexible. We've no reason to ever consider wanting to wear such a headset for whatever one would, play games or see things that aren't there. And this is to be avoided. And as far as exercise is concerned, it's a question that's often asked. I don't take any exercise specifically, but as a visitor's just pointed out to me again yesterday, whom accompanies me on arms round when they're here, said, Crumbs, I don't understand that question when you are always answering about exercise. These people need to see how far you walk every day and the amount you have to carry. It's pretty hard work and physically demanding, all done in bare feet wearing these robes in the proper fashion, covering to our wrists and our ankles. So that's exercise in itself. But as I also pointed out to him, when we are living on the floor, every time we need to do something, we've got to get up from the floor and then get down on the floor. So if you sit on the floor now like this, get up, go to another room and come and sit down again, you'll see that that's quite a demanding physical exercise as well. And you think how many times you need to get up in the day and down again, rather than sliding off of your sofa gracefully. Someone commented that I move around like a robot. Now I don't know whether you might have jittery internet or something, but I'm not aware that I move around like a robot, but I think they were having some other ideas and philosophies in mind behind what they were talking about, another agenda there. But we try to move around mindfully and carefully, and with no furniture, we're generally quite attentive to our movements in the way that we move, without banging things around, moving quietly. This requires a little more effort, both mentally and physically, and that in itself is exercise. Most of the time, most people who aren't practicing mindfulness in all of their daily activities, sati sampajana, are looking quite naturally and instinctually to do everything the easiest way possible, which is why you have furniture, why there is furniture, why cars have comfortable seats and ergonomically designed offices, to make everything smooth and easy. Now we take all of those trappings away when we renounce worldly life and live on the floor in a hut. It's a little bit more physically demanding, so exercise isn't required. But also, we don't need the distraction of entertainment. We're prohibited. So we're allowed to do what we like if we don't want to be Buddhist monks. There's no police saying you cannot do this, you cannot do that. There's the Vinaya that we adhere to, and our Sangha with whom we report to, and on a bi-monthly, twice a month basis, go through our rules and confess any transgressions of those rules to each other. Not for forgiveness, but just to make the determination not to transgress those rules again. To keep all of the things in order. But it's through choice rather than policing. We want to keep those rules because they're not rules, but a code of conduct, a guideline or set of guidelines that are supportive to our practice of meditation. So, for instance, to indulge in entertainment of any kind, whether it be listening to Dharma talks too much on YouTube or other things, or this VR headset thing, would be breaking those rules, but also, more importantly, it would not be supportive or conducive to our practice of developing sila, a samadhi, and could also encroach upon sila. As far as the Vinaya is concerned, and monastic rules, it's breaking sila, the precepts, but it's not a morally abhorrent or wrong thing to do, to indulge in entertainment of that sort. It's just not conducive to the practice of a Buddhist monk. So out of choice, I wouldn't want to either have this headset or do exercise of any kind. Throughout my life, I've never done exercise of any kind. So even when I was never very sporty, but even when I was practicing jiu-jitsu for some years, which is a kind of martial art, I was never that keen or didn't really bother with the exercise side of it. But I've always been quite active. An activity in itself. I've never really been a sedentary person, which is why meditation, albeit seemingly sedentary, attracted me, because it does require quite some, as you're probably finding from your own experience, some effort, both mentally and physically, to just remain straight and comfortable in a posture like this. Again, sitting still, doing nothing, is exercise in itself. So I would encourage you to put your VR headset away and stop exercising and see how long you can just sit still for on the floor. There's a test of your physical ability and your gaming ability, if that's what it is you do with a VR headset. Try this game, sitting still, doing nothing. See how long you can last before your desires, which is what's causing the suffering, overtake you and insist you put your glasses on again and start pumping the iron to increase your muscular capacity or size. So, test yourself. Play the real game, the Buddhist game. I had no idea it would be this much work, but they seem to be doing a great job. No, I didn't have any idea it would be so much work either. I did have a notion, but it's only when you start pulling things apart that you really get to the root of what the problem is. So bits were falling off of, this is the building next door, by the way, we're talking about here, I should be clear. You see bits falling off, don't you? This is like life. Things not working and things causing suffering. So the roof tiles are falling off, bits of plaster are falling off of the building next door. It's only when you take it all apart, break it all down, to the lowest common denominator. That is what's structurally sound that is left, that you can see what the cause of all those problems was. And that's what we do with our practice. We break everything down in our lives, down to the lowest common denominator, to establish what the cause of our difficulties, of our suffering, of dukkha is. And the cause is greed, hatred and delusion, or desire of any kind. Desire to have what we don't have, or desire to not have something that we have. This is the cause of suffering. This is the core of the teachings of Buddhism. And we see with the physical structure how that works. Taking it all apart, then there are some nice, beautiful old stone walls that are left that can then be the sound foundation, like the sound foundation of sila. Once we've got rid of all of our non-virtuous, immoral activities of drinking, of stealing, of lying a little bit, sexual misconduct a little bit, when we get rid of all of that, all of the broken materials, then we have a sound structure, a foundation to build upon. So now they've built with new brickwork, stonework, woodwork, the new meditation hall on sound foundations. Like we build our practice on the sound foundations of moral virtue, we're building a new meditation on the remains of the original building to be restored. So at the moment it doesn't look much like a restored building because most of it had to go. But it's all being kept and will all be put back in place, but on those sound foundations. So we don't lose anything through the practice either. We just put it all back on a firm footing, soundly, and as it should be. Everything in the right place, cleaned up, polished, and looking beautiful. Because the practice is beautiful. The Dharma is beautiful in the beginning, beautiful in the middle, beautiful in the end. It is all, the final result is beautiful. An ease of movement, not only physically, but of mind. Movement through life. Not expecting anything, but being equanimous to anything that arises, physically and mentally. Able to deal mindfully with all of our activities of body, speech and mind in life. And we can relate that to such a project. So yes, I was surprised. You're now just also saying, I'm just wondering, since this old house needed a lot of work and it could have been easier just to build a new one. But I'm thinking you wanted to preserve this historic house. Yes, well, the people whom are managing, assisting and doing the work did suggest that we ignore the old building and build a nice new meditation hall in front of it, where the walking meditation paths will be. But the nature of our practice should be, as Buddhist monks, as part of our overall philosophy, the overall practice is to make as little impact, not just ecologically, but in every respect, on the surrounding environment that we live in as possible, other than what we can contribute positively. And I've tried to live by that code, even prior to ordination, in order to not disturb my surrounding environment and to integrate into society by becoming invisible. Now, to ignore a falling down building and build a new building is very visible. What is going on at the moment is also very visible, but it's also very positive because it's healing, it's restoring, it's mending. Yes, a much harder, more difficult project than building a new steel and concrete structure, which could have been done and finished very quickly. But this is caring. It leaves the space that would have been occupied by a new building for meditation paths or just nature as it is, banana trees, coffee trees, coconut palms, where the snakes live, where the monkeys play, where all manner of other creatures, water monitors, lizard things, mongooses, all kinds of things, cats and dogs can run around as they always have done. It's their space after all. They were here a lot longer than I have been and will remain here a lot longer than I will after my lifetime. So we leave as much undisturbed as possible. But also, after restoring an older building, the end result not only is aesthetically more pleasing, more beautiful, it will be more practical, cooler. It has a high-pitched roof, again, difficult to put back. They wanted to perhaps put a lower, flatter roof of some synthetic material back, but I've encouraged them to replace it as it was. Thinking of planning laws back in my own country, which are not really here to affect us, I thought just restore it and put it back exactly as it was, and then no one can really have a problem with that. Not that they would, but I would. If something's beautiful, however much work it needs doing to keep it to remain there, I think it's worth doing. It's been there for 150 years, it can now be there for another 150 years, can't it? For a little bit more effort, a little bit more care and attention, yes, a little bit more expense, but the end result will be more beautiful, cooler and more practical, and we'll have those wonderful walking meditation paths still. And I think people locally, although I don't have the conversation, not speaking the local language, will respect that extra effort and your extra input and expense, and see the results of that as caring for their community, caring for their village, rather than just going in and building what we like, where we like, willy-nilly. A stupa here, a statue there. No, no, no. Let's restore something that's already there. Much nicer idea. So yes, you are right. I did want to keep the old place there. So I think on that note, I'll bring the questions and answers comments session to an end. Please keep the comments and questions, anything you have to ask me, coming in, so that we can continue with this in future days to come. I'll look forward to that. In the meantime, if there's anything useful there, please use it. If not, just let it go and don't let it trouble you. And be happy, stay well, Sukhi Hotu.